thank you to the sponsors of our forum, family, and friends. I'm Shelley Alloy, and I ask for your vote on November 3rd. It's been said that everything rises and falls on leadership. Cities have been built and others destroyed. Companies have prospered while others have failed, and individual lives have been changed for the better or turned for the worse, all because of leadership. In 2 weeks, you'll cast your vote for the mayor and the board of aldermen who will lead the city of Frederick over the next 4 years. We need aldermen who are of, by, and for the people, those who listen well, who are accessible, and who will be strong as a strong voice for the citizens of Frederick. I was raised here. I love this city, and I will listen and be your voice. We also need aldermen who are experienced, who know how to solve difficult problems, who are skillful in resolving differences, and who are not afraid to ask tough questions. My background has equipped me well to look at an issue from all perspectives, to seek out resources necessary, and to think outside the box for innovative solutions to tough issues. My approach is to raise the status quo, to magnify what works in Frederick and to improve what does not. We must alleviate the current tax burden and change the way we do business in this economy. By focusing on economic development, diversifying the tax base, and ensuring tax equity, we can realistically approach reducing the current tax burden while maintaining cost-effective citizen services. I commit to being your citizen advocate in this endeavor. I also want you to know that I understand that serving others is a high calling, a calling to be handled with responsibility, honesty, civility, and integrity. This is my commitment to you.
We now begin the question portion of tonight's forum. The first question goes to Paul Smith. Please direct your attention to the screen behind the candidates.
How do you set budget priorities? What parts of the budget will you protect? And what aspects of the budget are you willing to negotiate?
Mr. Smith, you have 2 minutes.
This is the issue of greatest concern to more residents than any other issue at this time, I believe, and that is, what are we going to do with the budget? I think, first of all, we need to point out that the budget problems will be severe. I think Alan correctly stated that this may be the most difficult budgetary year we've had in a long time. No part of the budget is free of examination. Several candidates have suggested going to a zero-base or approach or something like to it, which means basically that every area would be examined. So first of all, there is no area that would be exempt, not because we like one more than the other, is we have very serious issues and everyone will have to justify their expenses. We have went through a year and a half ago when we, as a city, budgeted more than $1 million to upgrade our vehicle fleet, especially in the police department. I think about $1 million there. That was very fortunate because then we got hit last year with a very difficult time. Other areas will have to make some of their capital equipment last a little longer. We already last year cut back many of the little things that we could cut back. We cut back significantly on funds for parks and recreation and flowers. I hate to see them cut, as we all do, but that was something that could go. We have tried to be very efficient, and we'll have to continue with that. One of the things, probably the major thing to be addressed, the whole breadth of the city budget, are benefits. It was pointed out that the benefits, in addition to salaries, is over 60%. I think it's somewhere between 60 and 70. We're going to have to figure out ways, whether it's with higher deductibles for insurance and other things. This 60% is way out of whack with what the city can sustain. And when you add that to retirees, it is putting a tremendous burden on the city that we'll have to come to grips with.
Candidates, this is an opportunity for you to use your 1-minute intervals. Ms. Kozebchik. And Ms. Young, Ms. Hathaway. Semchuk, you may begin.
Thank you. Safety and quality of life are the most important issues in city government. As Paul said, no part of the budget will be left unexamined. I've been examining budgets for the last 12 years. I am the only legislator who regularly brings forth changes to each year's budget. I look at the thing line by line, section by section, and I plan on doing that in the future. If you look at my record, you will see that I am the one legislator who does that on a regular basis. I will do it in the future.
Mr. O'Connor?
This is one of those jobs I have in my full-time job at the church of developing the budget and working with our finance committee. And we know certainly in the nonprofit realm what this economy has done to our revenues. And obviously the city is no different from that. And I think what's really important when you talk about the kinds of services that nonprofits deliver and which government delivers is you're talking about people. And I think that's an obligation that we as elected officials need to take very seriously, because when we begin to talk about how we're going to reduce the budget, we're honestly talking about people's livelihoods. And that's not a decision that anyone can take with any kind of lightness, and it is something that I am prepared to deal with, I think. And I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Young.
Complex budgets is precisely the reason I got into this election. I recognize that we would have a very challenging budget process, and this is what I've been doing my entire career. First of all, there are two sides to a budget. There's cost cutting, which is a short-term strategy, and there's revenue generation. That's the greatest opportunity we have, to generate revenue through economic development so that we can minimize cost cutting. Secondly, I would look for citizen input. We can better utilize the NACs and get input from citizens in general, specifically the NACs, on what your priorities are. I guess that's it.
Mrs. Hathaway.
In its most simple form, city government has a responsibility to provide public works and public safety. Those are two items that we definitely have to provide for in the budget, and that includes our police department and our. Additionally, we need to figure out how to bring more revenue into the city, and a lot of that comes through tourism. Tourists are a great asset to our city. They come here, they spend money, and then they leave without creating a burden on our infrastructure. So those will be priorities of mine. Additionally, I think we need to get away from the traditional model of government budgeting, and that is you have a pot of money and you have to use it all, and if you don't use it all, you don't get that money back the next year. Instead, we need to switch to a business model, and that's the model where you have to justify every dollar. This is going to be time-intensive and labor-intensive, but we'll need to involve all departments across the city to make this work.
Mr. Imhoff.
For the question that was asked, as far as setting priorities go, we have to maintain those basic services that the city is set up to provide our citizens. But more importantly, we also need to take a look at those things that the city has already started that we will need to reinvigorate business once the economy turns around, so that we may have to do some capital budgets that we hadn't planned on to be ready for that. And lastly, as far as protecting anything in the budget, there is nothing in the budget that can't be changed. And one of the things that may have to occur is we may have to change and look how we operate on a day-to-day basis with the people that we have.
Ms. Alloy?
Would you please read the full question once more?
Oh, the question had to do with how do you set budget priorities? If you need to make cuts, what cut will you make? And what are you willing to fight for to preserve in the budget?
With regard to the budget, it is very important that we first focus upon basic citizen services. Water and sewer, trash removal, the things that we absolutely need to have. Now that said, there are some places where we can look for more revenue, and one of those is in the current tax equity formula. For example, the recordation taxes that are currently given to us through tax equity are from a formula that was created 30 years ago. That said, the city produces 50% of the recordation tax